Think of how many hospitals you can build, how many schools you can build, how many things you can fund, how many scholars can be funded, how many public services you can improve if you had the wealth to do so, if as an ummah we had the collective wealth to do so, how many ways we could shape the narrative and shape society. Before we talk about why we should build wealth as Muslims, we have to break two misconceptions. The first misconception is that the Prophet ﷺ was poor. Whoever says the Prophet ﷺ was poor, I challenge this person to bring me concrete evidence of this. The Prophet ﷺ was a noble man from a noble family, and he was wealthy, but he lived a simple life. He chose to live a simple life. It is not that he was poor, that he did not have the means, that he struggled. No, he chose to live a simple life, even though he had access to wealth. The Prophet ﷺ owned land, he owned farmland. Part of this farmland was generating rent, income. Part of this farmland, he had given it as a waqf to generate income fi sabilillah, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ made investments. The Prophet ﷺ bought and sold, he traded. He entered into a mudaraba, a partnership agreement with Khadija radiallahu anha before Islam. He learned to trade under the mentorship of his uncle Abu Talib. So this is somebody who's an experienced trader who travels to Syria in those days, to the Levant, to trade. He understood the ability to understand local cultures, prices, customs, products. He had all of this understanding. The moment he arrives in Medina, after building Masjid Quba, after building Masjid Quba, what is the first thing the Prophet ﷺ builds? One apartment for each of his wives. Property. He gave importance to these things. This is the first misconception. For us to think the Prophet ﷺ was a poor, financially illiterate person, this is a lie against the Messenger ﷺ. The second misconception, which is a really important one, which is very popular, which we have to destroy, is that poverty is piety. If somebody is poor, that means, mashallah, this person is righteous, going to Jannah. This is not the case. The Prophet ﷺ, he informs us that wealth is a test, absolutely. And he also informs us that the people who have less, they tend to be the people who are more conscious of Allah because they have less material tests. They're able to focus on the worship of Allah, and they're able to give less importance to these things. That doesn't mean that if you take an average person who's poor, an average person who's rich, the poor person is 100% more righteous, not necessarily. From the 10 people promised paradise, 8 or 9 of the 10 people promised paradise were business people, were traders, well-known traders, who were wealthy. They were affluent, they were not poor. So these are the two misconceptions. Number one, the misconception that the Prophet ﷺ was poor, and number two, the misconception that poverty is piety. The Prophet ﷺ said, نِعْمَ الْمَالِ الصَّالِحِ لِلرَّجُلِ الصَّالِحِ. How amazing it is for wealth to be given to a righteous person. It's a virtue, it's not a naqs, it's not a deficiency, it's a virtue. It's something that, it's not just that we can say, oh, there's nothing wrong with you wanting to be wealthy. Rather, it is virtuous and recommended and rewardable for you to be wealthy, but you got to go into it with the right intention. Why do we build wealth? 3 reasons why we build wealth as Muslims, as individuals, but also for the sake of the ummah. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Dawud and Sulayman, the verses I recited in the beginning, does he talk about 2 poor prophets? No, 2 influential prophets. 2 influential prophets who he has given wealth. To the extent Sulayman alayhi salam subdues a kingdom. Which kingdom? The kingdom of Saba. He subdues the kingdom. How? Because of the wealth and power that Allah has given him. There's no other way. If he does not have the jinn and the wind and the elements in his favor and the wealth in his favor, how is he going to be subdued by them? The second, we look at some contemporary examples. Those who have wealth are able to dictate the narrative. They own the media outlets. They own political lobbying groups. Sugar companies in the United States of America have the most well-funded political lobby that goes and fights for laws to be passed in its favor. Sugar companies dictate the law of the country. We learn from the life of the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet ﷺ was in Mecca, the Muslims had nothing. And Allah was teaching them the values of belief and faith and conduct and patience. But when the Muslims moved to Medina, the Prophet ﷺ made many strategic financial decisions in order to build influence. He was intimately familiar with the trade routes between Ethiopia and the Levant. In fact, it is one of these trade routes where he intercepts a carriage which becomes the Battle of Badr. The Battle of Badr happens because the Meccans have sent a caravan to do business towards the Sham, towards the Syrian region. The Prophet ﷺ knows this, he knows the trade routes, he knows the business styles, he knows where they go, and he tries to intercept the caravan. This is an economic war. This is not a physical war. He's trying to intercept. He's very strategically choosing what to intercept. That turns out to become the Battle of Badr, the first full-fledged battle in the history of Islam. Wealth is influence. The Prophet ﷺ, why was he targeting this little caravan? Because he knows if he can target this caravan and affect their trade, he has influenced the people of Mecca. And he's weakened the people of Mecca. And he understood this very well, that wealth is influence. The second